Hi, everyone. How are you? Happy Monday morning. It's actually Thursday right now, but I'm filming this to get ready for us to start our distance learning on Monday. So when you press play on this for the first time, it will be at least Monday morning. So before I share a screen and we start talking about our next unit, I do want to let you know the way this is going to look. I know I explained it in the email, but I just want to reiterate that in this video as well. So every Monday, you are going to get an email from me with 3 videos and 3 assignments. It will be the same video for all levels, but the assignments are different. So often honors and advanced assignments will be the same, but sometimes they will be different as well. So CCP, honors, advanced, make sure that you're choosing only the correct assignment. CCP, I don't want you doing the advanced work, and my advanced students, I don't want you doing the CCP work. So just be careful of what you are clicking and what you are doing. Those will be in every email I send you. You can either type them in a Google document, send them back, or you can type them directly in the body of the email. All of those should go directly to my Gmail address. Please try to avoid using the Quincy Public Schools. It's just easier for me to have them all in one place in Gmail. Okay, so that slevineqhs@gmail.com that I'm emailing you from, you should be using that to email me back, okay? If you need assignments in other places, I'm also going to be uploading it to the gradebook on Aspen. So when you go to Aspen and you look at that, you'll be able to see the assignment. When you look at the assignment there, you'll be able to click on it and get a PDF of the assignment there as well. So you'll be able to get it in both my email and in Aspen. I'll show those to you. You'll get those in an email on Monday. And then they are not due. You don't have to do any of it and turn it into me until Friday at 5 o'clock. So by Friday at 5 o'clock is the due date for all of those assignments. You can do them all at once on Monday. You can space them out. You can do them only on Tuesdays and Thursdays if you want. It's really completely up to you. Then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, from 1:30 until 2:30 on both days, you will be able to log in to a Zoom meeting that I'm going to send to you, the account information for. And on those days, you'll attend the meeting, and you don't have to, but you can attend the meeting and ask any questions you have. You can just check in. You can say hi. If you want to talk more about a topic, if you want to ask questions about it, if you have a question about the work, that's the time to do that. You can, of course, email me any of those questions, but sometimes it's nice to get to see you face to face, so we can do that as well. I think that's it. I am going to go ahead and share my screen now. So when I do this, I will be able to show you the PowerPoint for our next unit and hopefully get us all squared away. So I'm going to share screen. See if this works. There we go. Okay, so you are looking at my screen right now. I am actually going to start this slideshow. See if it'll keep me in the corner. Oh, it will. Good. Hi, everyone. Okay, so let's pretend we watched Gladiator. We finished watching it. It was great, right? Great movie. If you didn't get a chance to ever see it, it's not on Netflix, but I think it might be on Amazon. It's on TV a lot. If you have HBO or Showtime or any of those, I highly recommend watching it. But let's pretend we didn't leave school at all. We watched it. It was great. You did the assignment. You all did so well on the assignment. And now we are going to officially, finally, start Unit 8, the European Middle Ages. Yes, the knights, the chivalry, all that sort of stuff, castles, the plague. Oh, we'll talk a lot about that this year. All these different things we are going to be talking about. So let's go to our next slide. We are going to do this unit in a few different sections. So typically it's one of our bigger units. It'll still go out over the next few weeks, but we will have shortened it a little bit. So first, we're going to start Introduction in Dark Ages. We're going to do that in this video. And then we're going to move into feudalism, then the Age of Chivalry, then Power of the Church, talk about the Crusades, the wars there, the development of England, and then finally, the 100 Years' War and the bubonic plague. Are you ready? I know you are. So here we go, jumping into the Introduction and the Dark Ages, Section 1. If you want to take notes, physically on paper, you are more than welcome to do so. You can find notes outlines if you want to print them off at my website, slevineqhs.weebly.com, or you can just listen and follow along as we go. So if we call this whole time period the medieval times, we're going to split it into two different parts. There are the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages. So while our focus here is on the Middle Ages, we're going to talk a little bit about the Dark Ages. So the Dark Ages are considered to have run from about 410 CE until 1066 CE. This is also known as the early Middle Ages. A lot of different things mark this period of time. This is, of course, the time when the Roman Empire fell. So we see that shift towards the east instead of still being based in Rome. And remember, barbarians overrun Rome a number of times. We see that happen again, a rise of what Europeans call barbarians. So often these are people like your Vikings or just the different groups that were not part of the Roman Empire starting to move into the Roman Empire, and those people called them barbarians. We also see between 400 and 700 CE monasteries, homes where monks lived, monks' place of residence. They become centers of education. It's not just about being a monk and being devout, but people begin to use them as educational centers as well. After that, we also see a very specific architecture style. We're going to talk about this a little bit later on when we talk about castles and different architecture styles during the Middle Ages, but the early Middle Ages are also a time period where we really see this very dark style of architecture. It's known as Romanesque architecture, and we see, especially in churches and in castles and buildings that are made very tiny windows. There's not a lot of light. That would be Romanesque architecture. We move from there into the Middle Ages. So this time period is 1066 CE until 1453 CE, and that's when we'll stop our study of the Middle Ages, is 1453. Some major events mark this time: the Crusades, feudalism, and the plague. Two major political ideals come out of this. We'll talk about these in the development of England, both the Magna Carta and the idea of Parliament. Two very important things that we use today in the United States of America. And in terms of architecture, we see this time period marked by a Gothic architecture style. Have you heard of that before, Gothic? A lot of people, when they think of Gothic, they think goth, they think very dark. That is not the case. While that's more of a fashion sense today, or within the last 30 years even, really Gothic architecture style is a light, it's a very open sense of architecture style. So let's keep going. During this time, the influence of the church starts to expand greatly. The Christian church became an important political, economic, spiritual, and cultural force in Europe. People turned to the church for absolutely everything. At the time, the leading officials were the Pope in Rome and the Patriarch, as you'll remember, in Greece. So remember, eventually, the church splits into two different churches, and the Pope becomes the head of one, and the Patriarch becomes the head of the other. But before that happened, the two leading officials were the Pope and the Patriarch. Heresy is banned during this time. What is heresy? This is a great moment for you to take out your phone or go to dictionary.com and look at the definition of the word heresy. I'll give you some extra credit. If you tell me the definition of the word heresy in your email back to me with this week's work, you'll get an extra bonus point for everything. So, and I mean the exact definition of it, but for our purposes here, heresy is going against the church, speaking out against God. I need the dictionary definition for that extra credit point, but for our purposes, the paraphrased definition there is going against the church. So it is banned to go against the church. No one is allowed to do that without penalty. People are forced to convert. We see a lot of forced conversion. And eventually, 1054, my favorite event that we've talked about so far, the Great Schism occurs. And that is 1054 when the Pope becomes the official head of the Roman Catholic Church and the Patriarch becomes the official head of the Eastern Orthodox Church. So remember, the Roman Empire officially comes to an end in 476. And when that is dissolved, we see a number of small kingdoms start to develop across Europe. One of the largest and strongest of those is a kingdom controlled by the Franks. So they are in the former Roman province of Gaul. You'll remember we talked about that with Julius Caesar. Do you remember where Gaul is? That's right. Gaul today is modern day France. Their first Christian king was a man named Clovis. So the Franks, they set up in what is France today, called Gaul then, and they have a Christian king. His name is Clovis. Clovis is important because of the amount of land that he established for the Franks. By the time he died, he had taken over the amount of control about essentially what is in total France today. So he had really expanded the territory that the Franks ruled. About 200 years after Clovis died, a man named Charles Mantel began to extend influence. He focused on beginning church reforms. He really wanted to make the church more accessible for the people. Pepin the Short then continued his reforms and officially established the Carolingian dynasty. This was a dynasty formed to protect the papacy and establish that the Pope and the bishops make the kings. So their entire purpose of these church reforms was to connect the people more to the church than ever and make sure that they could not at all be separated. They wanted the people and the church to essentially do everything together. They wanted the church to have full control over the government, over what was happening in people's lives, and fully connect the two groups. When Pepin died, he left his two sons in power. You've heard this one before. That doesn't always go so well. And in this case, two sons, one of them is Charlemagne. And when his brother died, Charlemagne quickly seized and took over the entire kingdom that the Carolingian dynasty ruled over, making Charlemagne very, very powerful. So the area that he rules over is known as the Holy Roman Empire. On Christmas Day in 800, so December 25th, 800, the Pope Leo III at that point, names Charlemagne to be the Holy Roman Emperor. He is the first ruler of what is known as the Holy Roman Empire, and he imposed order throughout the church and the state, really tried to streamline the two and make sure, like I said before, that they were operating as one and the same. He also ordered standardization throughout the entire empire. He didn't want what was happening in one part of the empire to be completely different than what was happening in another part. So he brought the two together and made sure that things around the empire were the same. So a couple major things happen with Charlemagne as emperor. The first is that when he is crowned emperor on Christmas Day in 800, he is crowned by the Pope. The Pope literally places that crown onto his head. And this showed that the church and state were combined. They were one and the same. The Pope at this point has both religious and political power. And this will become the custom that popes crown kings for a very long time. In fact, for about 1,000 years. Anyone know who it is, what emperor, what king later on down the road crowns himself? It's Napoleon, in case you might have known that. But if not, it is Napoleon, and you'll learn about him more next year when you are sophomores and you focus on that time period in modern world history. After Charlemagne, we see a rise of feudalism, which is a system of government, among other things, and intertwines a social, political, and economic system. So we'll talk about that a little bit more during our rise of feudalism section. In the 12th century, long after he had passed, Charlemagne was appointed as a saint in the church. During the time that he reigns, we see a huge revival of arts and education in Europe. We really see a push for people to extend their classical knowledge. And after his death in the early 800s, the Carolingian dynasty does start to decline. This is an image of what his empire was. Let me get this for you. So everything you see here in yellow is what the empire looked like when he first took power in 768. by the time of his death, he had reached everywhere that you see is brown as well. So if here is France today, this area here, he owned all this much more land. So part of what is Spain today, part of, what would be Germany and the Netherlands and Belgium and Switzerland and Italy, also some Austria over there. So a lot of different areas that he ruled over that we now know to be separate countries today. So today, your work for this video, there are 2 different assignments. For you in my CCP class, you're going to be doing a short reading, learn a little bit more about Charlemagne, and answering some questions on the back of that. If you printed double-sided, I guess. You might not be doing that if you printed at all. But otherwise, there are a set of questions. Again, you can either answer them, you can print it off, you can write them right on there, take a picture, send it back to me. You can answer them in an email, or you can answer them in a Google document. Either one of those options is fine. And then for you in my honors and advanced class, you're going to be taking a look at just a couple of primary source documents about Charlemagne and answering the questions that accompany those primary source documents. Don't forget complete sentences where you are able to do so, okay? Otherwise, you can obviously write not incomplete sentences, but complete sentences where you need to do so. And again, either print it off, answer the questions there, or put them in an email or in a Google document. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. The next video will be all about feudalism in Europe. We'll talk about the feudal system and go from there. Hope you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.